Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, this is Ankit Manan. I hope you are doing great. So let's start with the today's topic. So today's topic, it's one of my favorite topic because it's about the talk of the town nowadays. It's about the franchisee business and the standalone business. As we are familiar with the fact that today's market scenario is not at all good, and thus just because of this pandemic situation, it is affecting the most prominent sector of our industry, that is food and restaurant industry. Now what this article talks all about is that in case of such scenario, whether an individual should go for a standalone business or a franchisee business. Now, I would like to mention it in the starting only. Now, according to this particular model, what happens is the franchisee business in today's scenario is much more beneficial, and as you can see that there's mentioned that it can provide 400% of chances of generating profit as compared to standalone business. Now, before getting deeper into it, so let's talk about why a person in a from belonging from food and restaurant industry go for standalone business, right? So as we go deeper into it, now what happens is probably whenever any person starts a new business, he go into restaurant industry or specifically food industry not only just because of his passion, also it is because he loves doing it, because food is something which each one of us like to make it, either today or tomorrow. It doesn't matter at all. So what happens is when we indulge ourselves in that particular situation, it is very easy for us to make money out of it. Now, what this all model is all about, the overall model try to differentiate different parameters between standalone business and franchisee business. Now, before coming to the main aspect, I would like to put some light on the franchisee model and chain store, because in today's scenario we are somehow the other get confused that what is the difference between chain store and a franchisee business. Now, what happens in chain store business? Specifically, if I talk about, I am a business owner and I would like to expand my business without sharing any sort of capital or ownership, I would be then choosing a chain store business as far as franchisee business is concerned. Now, the main, if I go with the definition, the franchisee business is where the owner sells some of the business rights to the third party. And keep in mind this thing that in case of transferring of this right, now the transferring of this right includes business name, logo, model, or etc. Now, while transferring this thing, it also happens that some sort of rights are transferred to him, and also the risk associated with that is also gets transferred with the. Now in this case what happens is, for example, I would like to purchase an franchising business. What I am supposed to do is I am supposed to pay the initial amount, and some certain percentage of the profit as a royalty fees will be given by me to the owner. Whereas in case of chain store, there is no such scenario. As far as ownership is concerned, there is no chances of transferring of ownership. Hence, the risk which is associated with the chain store is not at all as compared to franchisee business. Means in franchisee business, the risk associated is shared by franchisor and franchisee. I hope you got my point. Now let's get main to the point that what are the major parameters on which this article says that franchisee business is much more better and more efficient in this pandemic situation. Now this article also claimed this thing that even in case after this pandemic there might be some business model who won't be able to earn capable enough, and as far as they need a proper shutdown. Now, in case of see, basically every organization who is running their business, their main focus is only on two things. The first thing is about their cutting their cost and to increase their sales. Now sales cannot happen in this scenario, which is just because of the pandemic situation. Now as far as cost cutting is concerned, there are majorly four wide areas on which this is covered. Now, as you can see here, it is mentioned that four areas are labor, raw material, real estate, and marketing. Now, let's touch these topic vividly in the terms. Okay, so labor. Now, in this pandemic situation, what is happening is there is a major problem which is involved in acquiring the labor from one place to another, because just because of the scenario, people are not able to find the proper labor. Now, what happens is in standalone business, the labor which is being required is, it is estimated to have a 10% cost of the production and the services, whereas as compared to franchisee model, it is which is calculated of overall, I mean how many franchises an organization have, it is lower than 15%, which is quite beneficial as far as overall business organization business organization is concerned. Now, the another dimension is about the real estate. Now, what happens is when we are going with a standalone business organization, it is very important for us to find a right place and a right, specifically finding a right place that where our business organization should be located. Because in a standalone business, we don't have any brand, we don't have any value, we don't have any goodwill, and it is very difficult to attract the customer which is located far from the places and which doesn't have any brand value, and which ultimately attracts more of a risk associated with the business organization. Now, as you can see that it is mentioned over there that the layout involves 40 to 50% of area which is dedicated to kitchen and services, and 50 to 60% for the services, whereas in case of, I would say, franchisee business, it can be reduced to 20%. There is no big deal in, because I believe that these small points can make a large difference when it comes to the scenario of making such uh, decisions, right? So coming on to the next point, which is raw material. Now, as we are familiar with this fact that raw material plays a major role in making the product or the services which are being offered by any organization. Now, here the franchisee business is actually leading it, because what happens is there is a term which is known as economies of scale. So what happens is in economies of scale, there is a scenario of making and purchasing the goods in a large quantity. I would like to quote it with the help of an example. Like, for example, I am a business organization and I want to purchase 100 kg of goods of any type from a particular organization. Now, another organization is purchasing 1000 kg of that quantity from that organization. Now, just imagine this case. A person or an organization who is purchasing 1000 kgs of the goods would definitely be getting much discount as compared to me, right? So, in this scenario, it is generally termed as economies of scale, where the overall cost of purchasing the raw material, I mean, sorry, I would like to spell it again. It's not the overall cost, but per head cost of making the good is far less as compared to the overall cost. Obviously the risk will be huge, because the stock out, if I talk about costing analysis, the stock out cost will be huge, but as far as raw material cost and purchase cost is concerned, it will be less, and also the ordering cost will be also be reduced, right? So in this scenario, franchisee model attracts a lot, franchisee model is much more better as compared to standalone business. Coming on to the next point, which is about marketing. Now, this is also the major impact, since standalone business doesn't have any sort of marketing strategies which are to be adopted by any organization. Also, there is no goodwill, there is no brand equity value, nothing is there. Whereas, also it also attract one another term which is known as negotiation. Now, what happens in case of a standalone business, any marketing expert, maybe any layman person who is negotiating with any other organization, may not have that particular expertise or a skill which is required to make a deal. Whereas in case of a franchisee business, I believe that it is much better, and the organization has a capability to tackle it much better as well. And here it has been quoted about the Zomato and Swiggy, like as you can say that the commission rate can be as high as 25%, and it can be reduced to as low as the organization can handle. And coming on to the another point, which is known as administrative cost, which also plays an important role while conducting the day-to-day operations of the business organization. Now, if we see this point, the stand in case of standalone business, generally what happens is, in case of standalone business, there is no requirement of these things. In as far as technological is concerned, there is less technological involved in case of standalone businesses. But as far as franchisee business is concerned, it is much better in case of efficiency, productivity, quality of the goods and the services which are being given to the organization. Now let's observe this chart. As you can see here, the green line indicates the standalone business statistics, and the franchisee business, blue line indicates franchisee business. As you can see this point, that if I compared about the staff cost is quite less as compared to standalone businesses. But as far as food cost is concerned, as you can compare it, the food cost of standalone business is much, because I already mentioned about the economies of the scale thing, the cost will be much higher. Now this is the little comparison which is involved, and various dimensions which are involved while figuring out that which type of business should be better. Also, since this is a journal scenario which I have discussed, it's not the accurate thing, because there are every side has a two coin, and there are definitely the cons of having a franchisee business. It was just a dimensional way, or my perception to view the things. I hope you like it. So thank you so much.